whole range of cats, and thank you everybody for hanging in there. We're getting towards the end of things, and I know everybody's probably feeling as tired as I am right now. I just want to say a quick thank you to Heidi and Nick who helped to pull this presentation together, and I really want to focus on the Wellington example. The Wellington example, very loud, in terms of the partnerships that we formed and the things that we're doing a little bit differently now in this space. So Wellington context, around 200,000 people, plus, a little bit more than that. In terms of cats, that's the estimated figure of the number of companion cats, owned cats that we have in the city, 68,100, plus, plus, plus. So we have absolutely no idea how many feral and stray cats we have. And I want to sit with this slide for a little bit because there's been a whole lot of discussion around these guys. And I get the feeling we're starting to treat them as though they're their own separate species and we can treat them in isolation and let's just deal with the feral cats and everything will be tickety-boo. And that is absolutely not the case. So feral cats, the definition, and obviously this is a very well used feral cat photo because I saw it was in Helen's presentation earlier as well. Evil cat. So the feral cats are ones that do not rely on humans for any of their needs. So they live removed from human habitation. Stray cats are cats that rely directly or indirectly on humans for some of their needs. I mean, that could be scavenging from bins, it could be somebody actually feeds them but says they don't own them, so the ownership is questionable. This can also be cats that have got lost and haven't found their way back home yet. And companion cats on the other end are the cats that are owned, and someone has put their hand up and said, I own this cat. Now, there are a whole lot of movements between these cats. So you can't just get rid of the feral cats if you've got strays on the outsides of our towns, because in a generation or two, they will move out, they will no longer be dependent on people for anything, and they will become feral cats. So we really need to think of them as one entirety and manage them accordingly. This is a quote that I can just let people slowly read through, but I think it typifies the sort of struggle that we were dealing with in Wellington and that we are still dealing with in Wellington. In it you can see that people have used the terminology of both stray and feral cats in the one email. And these cats definitely stray, they are living around humans, close to human habitation, they will be interacting with people. They are stray cats, they are not feral. The issue with this sort of case is typically council, no responsibility, these cats are on private land, we've got no mandate to manage cats, not our issue. Greater Wellington goes, well, they're not feral cats, so we can't manage them under the regional pest management strategy, so they're not our issue either. SPCA and welfare organisations, those cats are perfectly happy and healthy, feeding on native birds, lizards, whatever else, someone might be giving them some cat food, not our issue either. So basically nobody is saying that these cats are their issue. If they're feral cats, they're somebody's issue. If they're owned or domestic cats, they're often somebody's issue. But these ones in the middle are really causing us a whole lot of consternation because we don't know how to effectively manage them. So we started talking about cats in Wellington a number of years ago. And it probably took about 5 years of conversation before things reached a point, thanks to a certain public figurehead, Mr. Morgan. But that was actually good because it ignited some discussion, it got people talking. And in Wellington, we actually had some political will to continue that conversation. And at the same time, we were reviewing our animals bylaw. So it was a great time for us as a council to go, actually, we do need to have this conversation with our community and stop being so afraid. So we had a look at what sort of policies and strategies there were in place that we could do something under. And there's nothing in any of these that actually enables us to take any significant amount of action. There is no national guidance or legislation around cat management, and this was a serious issue for us as a council. And I've talked to a number of other councils who have all said, since we passed our bylaw, which I'll get to in a minute, we're interested in doing the same sort of thing, but actually our politicians or our management or somebody doesn't want to take that step until there's some sort of national guidance. And then I've also talked to people in central government who have said, oh, well, no one's coming to us, so we think it's all fine, there's no demand. So there's a total lack of communication with one group of people are waiting for someone to do something, and one group are saying, well, they haven't talked to us, so we're not doing anything. So again, that thing about having a conversation, we need to get better about it. So through our talking and going, right, we're actually going to start having this conversation, we identified who our actually initial stakeholders were going to be. So these were the people where whatever changes we made was going to have an impact on the way that they lived their lives, basically. So for us, this was around the cat welfare groups. It was around New Zealand Cat Fancy. For those that don't know, that's the organisation that all the cat breeders tend to fall under, the main one anyway. The New Zealand Veterinary Association and the SPCA. We had to work really hard to build trust with these people. These groups here have been really marginalised in the conservation conversation. So when these people have conservationists talk to them, they're told they're wrong, they're bad, their things that they love are evil. And so there was a lot of distrust when we first started talking to them. It took a long time of having those conversations. There's been a lot of talk about social licence to operate. I think it must be the buzzword for this conference. I've got to get it in there in this presentation as well. And I think starting off with actually identifying some of these people that either we haven't talked to closely, we haven't really engaged with, or when we've engaged with them, it's to sort of do the finger shaking at them. It's really important to bring them along as well. So where we got to with our animal bylaw is compulsory microchipping. That's what we sort of settled on as the best option for how we were going to start dealing with cats in Wellington and thinking about ways of managing them. But to get to that point, there was a really long engagement period. We started having those conversations almost a year before we even put anything out in draft. So we talked to these groups before pen was put to paper. We talked to them about their objectives, what they wanted. We tried to get some shared understandings. What were the non-negotiables in here? We also ran surveys across all of our public using reference groups and open surveys because we wanted, again, that social licence to operate. We didn't want to put something out there if the general public were saying, no, we're not interested. And we were also out there gathering evidence. And I've got a whole other talk just on that sort of evidence that we gathered behind the bylaw, which people like Heidi's research around wandering cats and how far cats roam, working with the Nest Te Kohanga at Wellington Zoo and Wild Base and DOC to actually get wildlife pathologists to identify the corpses of birds, figure out what's killing them. So there was a whole lot of information behind that as well. And what we found through actually running all that engagement is we had a high level of public support. And that was really important for us. So 89% of people supported microchipping of cats and 82% of cat owners. So we did actually separate it out and go, well, is this just everybody else? But no, actually cat owners were saying this is the right thing to do for cats and this is the right thing for us to do as a city. And if we didn't have that high level of public support, I think the next bit about those internal discussions is a really nice way of putting it, probably wouldn't have happened because there was a lot of pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure that we actually got something about cats in the bylaw. And having that background from the community who said, yes, we want this, basically gave me the mandate to be a rather pushy person within council to say we needed to do this, we needed to make it happen. So our bylaw was approved in 2006 and it becomes active in January 2018. But that's not enough. We can't just pass a bylaw. So what we did, using all of those partnerships, all of those, the relationships that we'd built up with those other people, we're now using those. We've got a cat reference group and we're actually running campaigns with those other agencies. So we've done a snip and chip campaign with the SPCA, which made it really cheap and easy, and they paid for the desexing using a bequest, and we covered the cost of the microchipping. And the other key part in there is actually in the bylaw, it's not just the microchip the cat, but you have to register that microchip with a council-approved registry, which at the moment is the New Zealand Companion Animal Registry. Because, of course, it's no good scanning a cat and a number comes up. The number doesn't mean anything unless it links to a person if you actually want to return the cat to their owner. And so the other thing that we're doing is over the month of May, so right now we've run one, got 3 to go, we've actually taken the microchipping out to the communities as well. So we identified key communities of need, such as Strathmore here in Wellington, and we're going out to the community halls, we're taking vet nurses, people can bring their cat in a carrier, and we'll chip and register that cat right there and then for those people at absolutely no cost. So we're not just putting a bylaw in, we're actually running programs to support it, again, working with those partners. The other partnership that's developed is we've now got, this is Nick Taylor, and he's our Animal Liaison Officer at the moment. So we're still pushing to make this a permanent full-time position. At the moment, Nick is funded 1 day a week by the SPCA, which is where he works the rest of his working week, and he's going to be funded 1 day a week by the council as well. And so what Nick is doing is he's out there and he's working with all of those other cat welfare agencies. He's working with the other parties to keep those conversations going, to make sure those programs happen, and to actually enable us to start dealing with things like where we've got stray cats. So again, you can't just pass a bylaw. You actually have to have people, you've got to have funding, you've got to have the resources to work with those communities and make the change happen. So one of the projects that Nick has been working on is up here in Shropshire Ave, which is not too far from where we are now down at Te Papa. He is working with city housing. This is a city housing estate. He's working with parks because this is Otari Wilton's Bush, so our largest K&E with quite significant wildlife in it. He's also working with our public health team, he's working with the local community, and he's working with the SPCA. So we are trying to deal with some issues there around a stray cat colony. And I mean, at the moment, no compulsory microchipping, so we're going out to the community, offering to microchip cats, trying to make that happen so we can identify the owned cats. And we then need to work with basically everybody in that surrounding neighbourhood because the distances that cats wander, and this is one of the reasons why we need to why we need to work with all of those partners is to make sure that so if a cat is found and it's not owned and it's a lovely friendly cat, the SPCA can rehome it. But we also have to be honest and truthful in these discussions that if there's an unsocialised cat in there, we will be killing it humanely. So what are we learning? We've learned a lot about animal welfare, a lot about accessing behaviour, sharing expertise both ways, legal ramifications. SPCA are the only ones that can legally adopt out an animal because they've got that legislation, so another welfare group actually can't do that, which is a really important point. Same, and under property law, so we can't just go and go, oh, you're a stray cat, we'll find you a new home. We legally can't do that under the current framework. Volunteer power, resilience, building up good relationships with these people who haven't traditionally been our partners, so when things do go wrong, we've actually got that sort of solidity in the relationship so that we can just kind of keep sailing basically and it doesn't actually break. And seeing things from a different perspective, things like TNR and how other people are dealing with stray cats. I just wanted to finish off, I guess, in terms of how other partnerships are developing in the space with similar partners that we traditionally haven't worked with. So people may have heard Helen talk before, the National Cat Management Strategy Group, of which these are sort of core members, and these are sitting there as advisors, who of course are also the key partners in this challenge. And what the strategy group has done is come up with a big strategy which can be found online. It's still in draft form, but it's trying to come up with things like this. So again, companion cats, that's fine, we can manage them in one way. Feral cats, they're actually pretty easy. We've got methodologies, you know, they can be humanely killed under current legislation. The big issue is this stray cat. So we've gone, actually, we need to break these stray cats down a bit. So we kind of came up with 4 categories and 4 different pathways for these cats, of which one for the unmanaged, unsocialised cats is humanely killed, but there's some around rehoming, and there actually is some targeted trap, neuter, release in there as well. Because one thing I've come to realise is everything has to be on the table, and as long as those colonies are managed to extinction, it has to be part of the discussion. We can't just say, well, no, that's not an option because we don't like it. So here's my crazy idea. And it really shouldn't be that crazy, that every cat is owned and living in a loving home. One of the things, I guess, that's frustrating about this is the fact that there isn't anything nationally that we can sort of pin this to. And if we can't deal with those stray cats, if we can't actually have any kind of national legislation or a framework, not to require action, but to enable councils to take action if they have that social licence to operate. So I guess the National Cat Management Strategy Group, so all of these partners, keen to be involved. These partners don't have the funding to continue basically past July. SPCA has been holding this group up. Lou, who is currently closing upstairs, made the comment earlier that it's great that the SPCA is owning this. The SPCA should not be owning this. They do not want to own this. They said they would pull together the development of this strategy to pass on to central government. We need to flip the structure on its head. We don't want MPI and DOC to be the advisors to this group. Someone needs to own keeping on the good work of this group, keeping on working with these partners who are really keen to be involved, but they can't keep putting tens of thousands of dollars into developing a strategy that's all around balancing cats and conservation. They're animal welfare organisations first and foremost, and that's where their NGO funding needs to go. So I guess the next step for the group to achieve this final aim is to start sort of banging some drums and actually saying all we're asking for is a coordinator to keep this group going, because really we do need to keep this group going because we're never going to deal with feral cats if we don't also tackle the issues of stray cats and domestic cats at the same time. Thank you.